Yeah. I know, that's so rude. It's like, unless I ask you for help, don't read my wordscapes. I know. Allison walked up and then I was like, Merlot. Like, that's one. Yeah.
Hello?
Thank you.
I got water and you have Merlot.
Right?
Yeah. How's Charlie?
Good. Good.
Rizzo was sick this weekend.
Was she?
He.
Sorry.
Think of Anthony Rizzo, you know, the Cubs.
Yes.
I know.
What was wrong with him?
He ate something. And so Saturday night, about every half hour, he just kept throwing up all over. And they would just keep doing loads and loads of laundry.
Oh, thank you. Stacy, like, I should have
Oh, great. That's all I need. Can I get it?
Just kidding, but I was like,
I don't think it was when I would make a dog food.
they're like, they're almost.
Can't sleep. Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, we're hoping Wednesday.
Because you haven't signed up. Like 5 minutes.
So I can't be two kids meeting a teacher and one kid in the
Remember, just do it right now.
Oh my gosh! It's like, please, otherwise I gotta have someone reading things going on.
That's why it was like, what?
It's all right.
Hey, Jenny.
Oh, that's what it is?
I guess I should just rewind.
You come in there really remember that background. Just. Yeah, but it's being against the wall. It's just the optics of it are good. And since I'm looking at projection, the whole thing can come through. So we're not projecting it. I'm gonna play the front tracks. That's totally serious. You're busy, really?
Most of them in the background.
Yes. John and his friends. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. When we talked about hiring the athletic director, he sat in the front with his family. I was near the back. That's not a good sign. Right away, he was in the back. It's like church.
Yeah, we got sprawl out.
Ooh, late.
We're already in open our session, so we can go ahead and stand for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda would be the recognition of visitors. There are no visitors to speak today, so we'll move on to presentations to the board, starting with Mrs. Springer, instructional coaching.
Good evening. I'm going to be presenting tonight on instructional coaching, and it will be a new method that I seek. I'm seeking your interest in, as well as your participation in, as a school district. So for right now, envision that it's 2025, and I've had a lot longer time to think about what I want from 2025 and what I want Galesburg District 205 to look like. But I would ask you, what are some of the things that you'd love to see at Galesburg? Anybody?
That's not rhetorical.
Yeah. Got to engage your audience. You guys.
Population of 40,000.
Okay.
Smaller class sizes.
Smaller class sizes.
Better physical facilities.
Okay. Audience members? Anybody?
Competency-based graduation requirements.
Okay.
School.
Anyone else? Seriously? Oh, yes.
Foreign languages taught in the elementary school.
Okay. I'll take a couple more. Any more? All right. As I've said, I've had a lot of time to think about this. So here's what I want from Galesburg District 205. A fully articulated, robust curriculum that provides rigorous learning experiences for all students. A place where students demonstrate high engagement in the learning environment, contribute to the content in which they are investigating, and seek out ways to enhance their learning both individually and collaboratively, inside school and outside of school. I envision a district where teaching and learning are a central focus, and practice is consistently reviewed and improved upon peer-to-peer in a collaborative and goal-setting arrangement. I envision teachers leading professional development, being the resources, the knowledge base on best practice instruction, and being the resource for surrounding districts. I want Galesburg to be the place that people come to learn about how to do school in 2025. So focus on that as we go in towards this instructional coaching presentation and see if we can realize that dream. Evidence-based funding on instructional coaches has an effect size of 1.25 to 2.70 based on the research from the evidence-based model in the 2020 Visions research. For example, there are research-based interventions, the 26 elements that many education-based funding model. Instructional coaching is one of them, along with counseling and tutoring, specialist teachers, class size, and summer school. But I would say that an effect size of 0.25 is significant. 0.5 is substantial, statistically. And 1.0 would actually bring a student from the 50th percentile to the 85th percentile. And effect size on the low end for instructional coaching is 1.25. And if I added up class size, tutoring, and summer school effect sizes, instructional coaching still beats that with all three of those added together. And instructional coaching is the actual ongoing critical coaching from one peer to another peer. So here's the Illinois Quality Framework. I don't know that many of you have seen it. I know that the graphic is very small on your handout, so there's a larger handout in the very back. The very last page of your handout is the greater size grid. Okay? It's pretty self-explanatory, but the whole idea is that it's continuous improvement and students learning through development through a fluid process. You can see the arrows going up and the arrows going down. There's a collective, in this whole quality framework, the idea that there's a collective collaborative commitment to identify, implement, monitor, and evaluate teaching and learning in a continuous framework. About efficiency and excellence and leadership from within. So it's the responsibility of school districts within Illinois to have leadership from within the ranks, within the teaching profession itself. This is a process about self-reflection, collaboration and evaluation, and participation in the professional growth and development to have high-quality learning community. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment are monitored and adjusted systematically, and we talk about conditions that are within the classroom to constantly improve achievement. So I would suggest that all of those things say, so what? Now what? So we know all this information. We have all this data in front of us. So what do? I really like this quote from Michael Fullen. He talks about the best leaders, what the best leaders do in an organization to survive and thrive. He talks about purposeful, positive peer interaction. It's when the values of the organization and those within the organization mesh, their ideals do, and when the knowledge about effective practices are widely and openly shared. And when monitoring mechanisms are in place to detect and address ineffective actions, they consolidate effective practices. So it's like real-time learning. I'm in your classroom. I'm another peer. I'm watching you. There's no way a teacher can catch all of those things that are going on in your room. So as a third set of eyes, or a second set of eyes, we can have this dialogue about what we can do to make it even better. It's not about people being bad at teaching. It's about making good go to great. What can we do to make greater impacts on student achievement? Teacher development research The teacher development research, Dylan William, actually he's the foremost authority on formative assessment. He speaks about teacher leadership. He said, existing research on teacher development indicates that most teachers improve little after their second or third year of practice. Because if you think about it, the mentoring goes away, those connections with more seasoned peers kind of dissipates because the practice and the cycle is over. It even kind of relates to the Gallup poll that was done about teachers after their 5th year. A lot of them are leaving the profession, but if you think about it, there's no support there beyond that 3rd or 4th year that is personalized, I should say. A significant cause of the failure of professional development to impact classroom practice has been a failure to understand the importance of attending to both process and content in teacher development. In fact, in the New Yorker, it says workshops led teachers to use new skills in the classroom only about 10% of the time, and then transitioned into their classroom only 20% of the time. But when they were actually coached, those practices sustained 90% of the time. So it takes the time to have the individual. A one shot in the arm kind of PD where you have a speaker or you have a workshop doesn't have a lasting impact on student achievement. So what is instructional coaching? It's a partnership. It's teacher-to-teacher collaboration, and it talks about the changing the culture of the school, the way we do business here. That's the whole idea of the collaborative relationship. It's a non-evaluative process. The instructional coach provides effective feedback. They work together to create goals. It is about being a peer-to-peer collaboration, like I said, not evaluative. And it utilizes the instructional coaching model that I have most been closely following, actually talks about adult learning theory and how to work with peers. You know, new people to the profession, people who've been in the profession for a long time, even gender and all of those different things about adult learning theory. Instructional coaching is an opportunity to identify the blind spots. Like I talked about earlier, you might have your classroom and you're doing a lesson and you're working with a group of students, but there's a group of students over here that you can't necessarily see. Or maybe those students are finished with the task and they're ready to move on to something new, but you're doing this. So what can we do to make this more effective? According to Jim Knight, he is the foremost authority on instructional coaching at the University of Kansas. He's a research associate for them. He said most people don't know what it looks like when they do what they do, okay? He talks about their teaching, interacting with others, so they can't predict or acknowledge their blind spots because they do not know they exist. So in this opportunity, a person can be within the classroom to observe, collect information, take student surveys, make observation notes, review your assessments together. Those are all opportunities. It brings a whole new level of awareness. In fact, Atul Gawande, who's a surgeon, he's actually a writer for the New Yorker as well, he did the same thing with his surgical practice. I felt like I was plateauing, he said. You know, I get to this certain point where I really feel like I'm on my game, and then I've plateaued. He said, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to do better at what I was doing. I wanted complications of my surgeries to go down. So he actually invited a professor in, who was a medical professor, who came in and he observed him. He said, you know, when you're moving, your arm's up. And apparently surgeons, but from the research I've had, they're supposed to have their arms down. So we talked about moving his stance. All of those things, he said he was able to see that in conversations with his clients or his patients, he was talking 90% of the time and not opening up those opportunities for others to talk or have the voice in the whole process. So if surgeons can do that, he also compares it to athletes. It's not that they've ever arrived. A coach has helped you, refine your practice over and over. Even instrumentalists and chess players they were talking about. It's also an analysis. It's a time for self-reflection and data review. We always talk about this deliberate practice. Elite performers, researchers say, must engage in deliberate practice. Sustained mindful efforts to develop a full range of abilities that success requires. So this time actually allows the teacher to allow for self-reflection through reviewing the perception surveys within the classroom, the observation notes, assessment data, lesson plans, teacher interviews. And the focus, to identify, learn, and improve is the whole goal of the instructional coaching model. So the teacher and the instructional coach would actually set goals, create an action plan, and then focus on areas such as engagement, achievement, management, teaching strategies, model the instructional practices. So the instructional coach might actually teach the next lesson so that the teacher that can then see how that is played out in real time. And John Hattie, laureate professor, he's actually known for his visible learning. He talks about the goals are identified as powerful, easy, emotionally compelling, reachable, and student-focused. All are based on high levels of trust and a dogged attention to what are the next steps, based on an excellent analysis of what is currently happening in the room. And it's also a time for reflection. So did I meet my goals? Is the plan that we laid out together working? Are we making, is student achievement occurring? What are those telltale signs of how the process is going? Or am I not reaching the goal and this is not necessarily effective and I just need to reframe what is going on? So those are all opportunities. And I'll let you read that. I would suggest that we have a moral imperative to use research-based methods to meet the needs of students. This imperative confirms that the need to implement strategies that demonstrate the greatest potential effect on our students' overall achievement. It is our responsibility to use those things that we know actually provide results. So how do we implement instructional coaching? It's a deliberate training of instructional coaches. Do we just hire someone and throw them in the trenches and do those kind of things? Absolutely not. If you're going to do something, we need to do it well. We need to take a deliberate action to set up that training process so that the coaches go in with the best possible resources that we can offer. And develop a focused effort on learning, resources, and creation. Coaching done well may be the single most effective intervention designed for human performance. Atul Gawande again said that Jim Knight, the instructional coach professor, actually helped me understand the details of how effective coaching can and should be done for even my profession, he said, in the medical field. The instructional coaching plan, what I would like to see is a number of instructional coaches. Actually, the number I'd like to see in K through 6 would be 4, because I think that's very important to have kindergarten through 5th grade, but then you also need that 6th grade gap. We need to make sure that we're getting them to that next level. I'd like to see another 3 from 7 through 10, or 7 through 9, and then 11 through 10. So you're bridging that gap the entire time. So that would be a total of 10. They would be involved in student engagement, high impact instruction, math, English, technology. They would be able to help in many areas. This would be a cost neutral transition. And Jen, you can jump in if you'd like, but we currently have 12 and a half interventionists in our 5 elementary buildings. And if you think of it this way, if we get our tier 1 instruction to where it needs to be, where we have the 80%, making gains at the tier 1 level, we can utilize those resources. We have 122 paraprofessionals that we can utilize as well for some of those intervention pieces. Do you want to talk any more about?
No, it's really just a cost-neutral transition. So we would be looking at taking our dollars based on the evidence-based model and things that have been identified in there, moving those positions to instructional coaching positions, K through 12, which would have a larger impact than our current instructional interventionists, where we have 12 and a half of them working just K through 5. And then we would be looking at having 3 interventionists, K through 5, and then utilizing, as Tiffany said, our 122 paras. That's a lot of feet on the ground, boots on the ground to help implement those interventions. But as Tiffany mentioned, until we can shore up tier 1 instruction, we could have 100 interventionists and we're still going to continue to not meet the needs of our students. So this is really going to help impact tier 1 instruction.
And I speak with tier 1 instruction with the education mindset, so I want to make that clear. That is the general instruction that takes place in the classroom. I don't want to just assume that those terms are widely known. But that's where we really need to reach the most students, and how can we do that in an effective way. One of my favorite quotes, do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you do better. I think we have the data in our hands, and I think we have a good solution for improving student achievement. I suggested a question at the beginning and asked you what you wanted in a district for Galesburg here in 2025. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. I think we can do a lot to build from within and opportunities for all of our learners. That includes teachers. So, thank you. Any questions?
So you're talking about this year, we'll be doing this?
1920.
So during this year, develop the job descriptions and things like
We
that?
would develop a job description. We would also spend time, I've been working with the instructional group, just trying to kind of identify what a timeline would look like and those kind of things. We would be able to have some intensive support here, and the company would be willing to come here and provide that for those teachers that were interested. We would obviously post for those positions so that people could apply to be instructional coach. I would love to have the vast majority of our coaches come from within. I mean, I think we have some rock star teachers. And be able to use those resources in all the buildings would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome also, I didn't really welcome you with that table, but we're glad, I'm
So
glad
quick
you're-
initiation.
I'm glad you're here, yeah, and already presenting reports on curriculum, so that's great, I think. But anyway, moving on to the approval of consent.
It's here. They're just here, I'm sorry. You're
But
right.
that's down,
This committee report then.
that's under, that's, okay.
Motion,
No, it's right here. You got a little help.
Try it again. Approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Questions or discussion? Allison?
Lyon,
yes.
Pickrell,
Aye.
Sherpy,
Aye.
Statham,
Aye.
Glasovich.
Aye.
Focus area number 1, relevant skills that lead to employability. Letter A, administrative report on curriculum. I have your name last one,
Go
but-
back. Spring.
Okay.
I just have a couple things. We've been working on our school improvement plans as far as rolling out a consistent process. I'll probably do this. Yep. Consistent process for school improvement plans. We rolled that out Thursday. I think it'll be very beneficial for the staff, not only, but the administrators, and I can actually go into this collective document on Google Drive and be able to see everyone's resources at the same time, so we can keep that streamlined. I just found out at about 5:30 today that Amplify Science is willing to give me a free pilot program for science for 6 teachers, kindergarten through 5th grade, for free. Did I mention for free? I'm really excited about the free program.
How much will that cost us?
And then again, the instructional coaching has been a big goal here. Thank you.
Letter B, special education report. Dr. Machad.
So special ed continues to work on hiring teachers and paraprofessionals. It seems like every time we close the loop and fill our positions, we have somebody new resigning. So we currently have the comm room position open, of which we've put in a deviation waiver to the state board. We have one student in that class that's outside the age range for that class by a few months. And so we've requested to allow that student to be in there in the absence of finding a teacher. It does not put that teacher's caseload over by any means. We have an opening in ED, which will be conducting, at Churchill, which will be conducting an interview tomorrow. And then if that doesn't pan out, we'll be working a backup plan of a long-term sub for first semester. And then our late resignation at Nielsen, since our ED numbers at Silas are dropping with students moving out of the district, we're looking to reassign a teacher over to Nielsen because Nielsen's right now really full, special ed students. So paraprofessionals, we have 4 openings and 4 applicants. 2 aren't qualified, but we're still going to interview everybody and talk to them about applying for a license. So just continue to work it. And then secondly is a speech handbook that was emailed out to all the board members. So we've had a speech handbook in the past, but it was about 15, 20 years old. And so we kind of updated it. We put a little committee together with some speech paths. We updated it, added some more current information. It really is a guide for them on looking at qualifying, testing students for speech path and what are the different areas within speech and language. And then what do we look at when we're looking for dismissal? So it's there. I'm open to any questions you might have on it.
I see it says draft on it. What makes it not a draft?
Right now, it's a draft, just to put it out there to the board to look at, hopefully to bring back a recommendation that you would approve it next month for us to use this as a guide going forward in speech pathology. It does address, when we had the individual come in and kind of do an audit on our speech, we were already in the works of all of this, so it does address some of those things that she mentioned in that report. We're already proactively looking at those things and updating those things. So I would look at, if there were no questions, that next month, maybe we could look at adopting this as our speech handbook to use for all the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Letter C, Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee report. We have the info in our, that's good for now? Okay, we're good. For us to go through and read, and then next month, we'll have our building reports back as well. Perfect. Next focus area, number 2, facilities that assist in skill acquisition. Update on district building projects. Mrs. Ham.
So we have a couple of different projects that are tying up as we come to the beginning of the school year. This week, we believe, actually, we thought today the playground equipment was going to arrive at Steele, but it did not. But the new playground equipment should arrive this week, and the installers will begin assembling that as soon as it arrives. We do have the new curbing that has been poured, and the sidewalks are finishing up that part of the project. The fences start to go in at the end of this week around the perimeter of Steele. And the parking lot is complete at Silas Willard. We're just waiting for the lights to come. They've been delayed in some sort of a shipment issue. I've been working with the engineer to try to get a timeline. We hope to have those in this week. So those 2 big projects hopefully will be tied up by the time the kiddos come back to school. I just wanted to mention that we have 3 building utilization engagements with Leggett Architects coming up very quickly here. On Friday, August 17th, we've invited people from the Chamber of Commerce and the business community to meet with Leggett and the central office team at F&M to give their input in terms of future facilities uses. The staff has been invited to an engagement on Monday, August 20th at Silas Willard, and then the community has been invited to one on August 23rd at Churchill Junior High School. So those flyers are on the website. They've been sent out to the community, and we hope everyone will come out. This is kind of a continuation of the 13 meetings that Dr. Asplund did with the community last fall, and we're just kind of narrowing down on facilities and needs with the architects.
And then I'd like to add, we do need to have a special board meeting to meet with the architects as well. We've indicated an interest in doing that. So seeing as the architects are going to be meeting with the staff at Silas Willard next Monday, I was hoping you would be available at 6:30 on Monday at Silas Willard, just to stay there with the architect. I already have things up and ready to go. We can just meet there in the cafeteria on Monday for a special meeting to meet with the architects and perhaps take some action on some other things. But will that work?
I'll make it work.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could talk to you and Member Glasnovich afterwards, I'd like to schedule a building and grounds committee to look at architecture or landscape architecture plans.
Yeah.
I have them all.
Okay, so next Monday.
On the plan, it's Friday that you're meeting at F&M Bank.
Yes.
At F&M Bank.
Yeah, I'm not sure that information has been shared well.
That's just for the business community. That has been,
I'm speaking as a business owner
Oh,
here.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't be, okay? I found out about it when I saw a notice about it on Allison's desk tonight.
okay,
Political reasons, I'm not a member of the Chamber of Commerce,
okay.
and so I'm not sure other businesses that are not members of the Chamber of Commerce, how they find out about it, unless the rest of them walk by Allison's desk.
We did tweet the community engagement and the staff engagement, but I can have Matt tweet that out, the community or the business flyer.
And then do you have any other organizations in town that you belong to? The
I don't know how people find out about things.
Green Grocer Association?
I don't think that's live now.
Um,
I'm just curious, how else? And the
Right.
Chamber, half members of the Chamber of Commerce are outside of Galesburg, anyway.
Well, and we also, got a list of businesses in the Economic Development Board.
Oh, he has a
So-
mailing list. Maybe Ken can send something out.
Yeah.
Well, Allison got that mailing list, but,
They just went out on
Friday.
Friday. I dropped them at the post
Yeah.
office.
Okay.
So maybe you already.
It's in the mail,
We'll
right?
check tomorrow. If you didn't get it, we'll have to
Yeah,
figure
it's just
something.
that the chamber's
That's
a
important.
smaller group.
That's important.
Okay, thank you.
But we will post that, we will tweet it for just the business owners, so.
It's good enough.
I don't know what tweet is.
Well, and we'll do it other ways too.
Moving on, focus area number 3, responding to the changing needs of our community. Letter A, consider approval of Bridgeway Agreement for Mental Health Services. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Ham.
So this is our second year with partnering with Bridgeway at Lombard School. You have the agreement in front of you. This is the same agreement that we had with Bridgeway last year. Unfortunately, we only had Bridgeway services for a little more than half the year, and they were incredibly successful. I know that Bridgeway came earlier this spring and did a presentation with Mr. Sutton regarding that. This is just a continuation of that agreement, and the fees have remained the same within the contract, and all the provisions have remained the same for 2018-19.
And I think it's important to know that this extends through the summer so that our
Correct.
students have services, and this summer they had services through the Bridgeway program.
That is correct. It is not just a school year position.
Any other questions, comments?
Pickrell?
Aye.
Sharpie?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Glasevich? Lyon?
Yes.
Letter B, consider approval of tentative budget for District 205 and ABC. Yeah, it's missing on the agenda.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, on the resolution, it's listed as ABC.
Oh, okay. Just there you go.
Okay,
Oh,
we need a motion.
I'm sorry.
First, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Ham.
So each of you received both the district budget and the GABC budget in your materials. Typically, I would have a budget presentation tonight as you pass the tentative budget. And then, of course, we would have a budget hearing in September, and we would approve the final budget. Because we need to wait to see if our new contract is ratified tomorrow night, that will create some substantial adjustments in our budget. And so what I intend to do is, if the contract is ratified tomorrow night, we'll be meeting on Monday night, and I will do my budget presentation at that special board meeting with the revised numbers as reflected with the changes in the new collective bargaining agreement. And GABC will also have some changes as well.
So we're not to approve this time?
You're approving the tentative budget, but then we will be making adjustments to it. So yes, you're approving this, knowing that it's going to change.
Procedurally speaking, you have to have 30 days between the tentative and the actual. And so if we don't approve it tonight, then we'd have to push the September meeting back even further than we already have.
Right.
Thank you for the explanation.
But we do make adjustments throughout so that we get as accurate numbers as possible.
Any other questions or comments? Allison?
Sharpie?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Glasevich?
Aye.
Lyon?
Yes.
Pickrell?
Aye. Letter C, consider approval of risk management. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Ham.
You should have in your packet of information the 2009 fiscal year risk management plan. The components of the plan are the same as they've been for the last 2 years, when we did some significant modifications to the existing risk management plan. And the budget you will find on page 16 that outlines all of the expenditures that will be taken out of tort for FY19. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any changes to the risk management plan other than addendum 1?
No, they're not.
As I read through this on the maintenance workers, I got concerned because in the news this past week was that Monsanto case of $289 million from a gentleman who did yard work at a school district from being poisoned by weed killer. I wonder what kind of exposure we have and what kind of training we have in the use of such things for our staff. I don't think we can cover $289 million.
No, we actually have, as part of our PSIC cooperative, we have a gentleman who's assigned to us for risk management. So he comes and does a risk management evaluation every year, and then he comes and does training with maintenance and custodians on those very types of issues. You know, just typical things, falls, injuries, exposure to chemicals. So these are all things that Tony covers each year in his presentation.
Do they follow those recommendations?
Well, we expect them to.
Well,
So, I mean, if Mark Reed, who's in charge of them, sees them not following those expectations, then it is addressed immediately.
Any other questions or comments? Allison?
Statham?
Aye.
Glasevich? Lyon?
yes.
Pickrell?
Aye.
Sherpy?
Aye.
Letter D, consider approval of intergovernmental agreement with the city of Galesburg.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Ham?
Okay, I think this is my final, the Jen Ham show tonight, okay. So we have our annual agreement with the city of Galesburg that Eric Matthews and the Director of Parks and Recreation and I met. For the most part, the agreement is the same as last year. We've tweaked a couple small things. We've added some free pavilion use for our elementary teachers who like to take groups out to Lake Story, and in the past, we had to pay a reservation fee. So now we get 10 free uses of the pavilion park,
You mean shelters then, correct?
the pavilion shelters.
The shelters.
Yes, thank you, for the shelters. We clarified some things regarding the softball and baseball fields. The city is looking at potentially holding a tournament in the future and would need our ball fields in the summer, and so we made a few changes to that. We made a couple changes to the junior high usage in terms of G-Force volleyball. But other than that, it's pretty much the same agreement that we've had in the past and has worked really well for us.
Questions or comments? Allison?
Glasevich?
Aye.
Lyon?
Yes.
Pickrell?
Aye.
Sherpy?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Moving on to letter E, consider approval of press policies, first reading. Dr. Aspen.
Thank you. The policy committee met online and discussed each of the policies, and the recommendations you can see are listed. Most of them are recommended to be approved on first reading. It would come back next month for second reading. Most of them are recommended to be approved with no changes except where noted on the recommendation sheet. Oh, you need a motion. You need it.
What color uniforms are you?
No, that was excluded.
Oh, right.
Matt, did you hear that? No uniforms. That's not part of the policy.
So moved. Thank you.
I thought it was just on
Second.
first reading.
Well, it's been approved in second, first reading.
Thank you.
And then you can just voice vote it when you get there. So, yeah, any questions about any policy, anything?
You answered all mine, I'm like, thank you.
Approve it on voice votes.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, personnel, consider approval of job description. Motion to approve.
So moved.
As you can see, we have a job description for a new position at the high school that would be split between GHS North and the high school. Predominantly, that person's job would be somewhat of a liaison to the community to, one, help our students understand what the employability skills that the employers would want in our community, and then help us to instruct those. And then two, we also have some, I can't put an absolute number on it, but some students who are forced to choose to go to work during the time of school. So trying to get that relationship with those employers to make sure that those students don't have to make that choice, so that they can rearrange their schedule to be able to go during the day, and if they have to work at night. And in addition, that person would also be looking at our online learning options and coordinating those, and also making sure that students are completing their homework and doing homework assistance and after-school tutoring. So it's a pretty comprehensive job description for one person, and their hours would be flexible to try to make sure that we can get all those tasks done.
Questions or comments?
Under qualifications, it said the minimum is bachelor's degree in counseling. Last I checked, you have to have a master's degree in counseling unless that's changed.
Well, and we're not, we're not expecting somebody to have a master's degree. I see your point that a bachelor's degree in counseling is somewhat difficult because that's not really attainable. Really more it's looking for a bachelor's degree of some sort and then some background in counseling, but we're not expecting them to be like a life counselor or anything like that. So that needs to be changed because that is not accurate.
And we're making changes in the online program for this year?
We are looking very strongly, yes, I had, and I've heard the concerns from other folks about the old online offerings were, for lack of a better term, watered down. And it was somewhat of an incentive for students to just not do well in the regular class because they could go take the online offering and pass without the same rigor. So Mr. Spring and Mrs. Springer and some other folks did quite a bit of looking around to see what was out there. And there's another offering called Edgenuity that is much more rigorous and would definitely, it would not be in a student's best interest to try to fail a class and then go on Edgenuity and take it because that's not, you're not saving time. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more interaction with a classroom teacher. We think those are good things. And we feel like this will be much more in the student's best interest in the long term. They may disagree with this when they're 16, but we feel like when they're 18 and 19 and 26, they'll be a lot happier with this program.
So we're doing it this year?
That is the hope, yes, we're going to do
We
that.
roll out professional development on the 20th.
Could the job description be amended to say a bachelor's degree in education for a counseling-related field?
That would be a much better wording, yes, sir.
Has there been a motion to approve it?
There has by you.
Is that okay with you?
I would amend my motion.
Who seconded it?
Jean Ann.
I said it.
Can we have a presentation at some point in the not so distant future on this Edgenuity?
Absolutely.
Would all of you be interested?
Yeah, you'll like it.
Yeah, absolutely. You write that down?
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
I was right out there too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Allison?
Glasnovich?
Yes.
Lyon?
Yes.
Pickrell?
Aye.
Sherby?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Say more to it, yes.
It's because two people are gone.
Letter B, consider approval of personnel report. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Dr. Asplund?
As you can see, we have a great many positions to try to fill. Our administrators and staff have done a great job of going out and finding a lot of great, not just people, but good people to fill the positions you see before you. We had some surprise resignations. We've done a lot of work in those areas as well to try to accommodate the needs that we have at this moment. So before you see a great many recommendations that are based on a lot of hours of work by our folks to try to get those folks before you. So I totally recommend all the ones for you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Allison?
Lyon?
Yes.
Pickrell?
Aye.
Sherby?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Glasnovich?
Okay, moving on to comments by the Board of Education. Member Safin.
Thank you. I guess the main comment I would like to make is about the contract negotiations. The Board of Education began the process of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement with the Galesburg Education Association in April of this year. Each side met face-to-face on 11 occasions. with the last meeting being a 12-hour marathon session last Thursday, which I will forever remember. That meeting resulted in a tentative agreement on the terms of a new 2-year contract, which I understand will be presented to the GEA members tomorrow at 4:30 for a ratification vote. During this negotiation, both the GEA and the board undertook a less adversarial approach than I believe has been used in some recent negotiations. For the most part, negotiations took place with all parties sitting at the table, face to face, making every effort to concentrate on what is best for District 205 students and the financial stability of our school district. I would like to very much thank Alicia Condre, who was the chief negotiator for the GEA and my counterpart in the discussions. And I also want to thank very, very much all the members of the GEA negotiating committee and all the members of the board committee. This was a lot of work. There was give and take by both sides. But I think the school community and the community at large benefited greatly from the approach that was taken by both sides. I hope that in 2 years, when I probably won't be involved in this, that the same approach is taken. And I think great strides have been made by both sides to build a lot of trust for future negotiations. And again, thank you to everybody involved.
Well said, thank you very much. Member Lyon.
Well, I hope a lot of people take part in these facility discussions over the next 2 weeks. I had to go pay a water bill today, and I walked up to City Hall. And just as I come to the corner there, it says, this is the site of Galesburg High School, which was closed in 1959. But it was only built in 1906. That means it was only 53 years old when it was closed. The current Galesburg High School, which opened in 1959, is now sitting at 69 years old. It's pretty amazing when you look at that side, at least I think so. And we're looking at an exploration of how to use our buildings without building new ones in most cases, to bring them forward for at least another 50 years. So I think we're doing the right thing here, and I hope the community shows up to share their vision of what these buildings can be doing for our children for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said again. Member Blaskovich.
Well, first day of school is about upon us, and I remember last year, as I talked to a couple of my favorite people, crossing guards at Silas Willard, that they were concerned about students and parents not being careful, using their crossing guards, as they should, crossing through them on the middle of the street rather than at the corner where the crossing guards are. So I just want to get it out there through the newspaper that I would like to make sure that you are safe with the kids and have them cross at safe areas. Those crossing guards are great people. They truly care about our kids, and they're there to keep them safe, and we want to keep them safe as crossing guards. And so use the crossing guards, use the appropriate corners, don't cross in the middle of the road. There are cars, they may not be looking for you. Let's just keep them safe out there. Thanks.
Three good comments. I don't have anything additional to add.
Thank you. I'm going to add one thing, Mr. Spindler, since you're here. Thank you for the postcard. I'm sure other board
Yes,
members got
thank
it too.
you.
I was wondering.
That was great.
Yes, it's always, exciting. I'm sure you send them way before they end up in our mailboxes, but thank you for taking the time to have all your students sign and send it back here to us, so thank you very much. That's the only comment I have, so I think that's about it. Future agenda items?
Well, now that we have a special board meeting next Monday, we'll now have a budget presentation, and hopefully we'll have depending on the outcome tomorrow, we'll have hopefully a contract to approve. And next month, then, we will be approving the final budget as well. And that meeting is a week later, as per customary here, 30 days, in between the tentative budget meeting and the final budget.
So the next regular meeting would be September 17th.
That is correct.
As well. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up, in case I forget to remind people in the future, I think Dr. Asman, you and I discussed this. Mr. Bradburn and I had worked last year on some revisions in the school code as far as student discipline, and it's since been brought to my attention that there are some inconsistencies in the school code. Students who should be treated the same, who I think just by oversight may accidentally not be treated the same. And I'd just like between now and not the meeting next week, but next month's meeting, we can figure out what we need to put on the agenda to address that.
Thank you. Anything else?
Keep it rolling.